Yeah, great.
Whoa, this ain't going.
Down the side, and
But I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments. I'd like to welcome all you beekeepers here tonight on the Bee Connection. Hope everybody had a great week. I know it was a busy one for me. So got a lot to have to do around the farm, and got all my honey extraction done. I am totally done now, unless there's some goldenrod. Hopefully they won't be. And I just packed my extractor up for the season. So we'd like to talk a little bit about robin tonight. So love for you guys to chime in and tell some of your experiences, some of what you think. I think there's some good stuff with robin, and there's a lot of bad with it. And of course, the ugly part is just losing a whole colony. So that doesn't feel good at all. So we're definitely going to talk about that tonight. So we did end up with about 8 gallons of honey for our last little bit of supers that we pulled off. So I was happy with that. So what's going on with you, Spanky? What you guys doing tonight? Doing anything?
Oh, nothing too much. I went to the bees before I got ready to get on here, so I went and checked them out. They don't have much honey, so I had to start feeding them. It's been a light year this year. They haven't pulled nearly as much.
I think I've seen quite a bit of the same, but I'm seeing a lot of nectar going in right now into the colonies. So hopefully that'll finish them up pretty good. I'm hoping. Goldenrod down there full blooms. Thank you.
Some of it's in bloom and some of it's getting ready to bloom, but they must not be pulling nothing off of it but a little pollen, because they were bone dry.
Okay.
With no nectar in there.
Well, you did have no nectar. Okay. I've seen quite a bit of my colonies that are starting to bring in quite a bit of nectar each day. And if you get in there, you see the comb starting to wet up a little bit. So I'm hoping the goldenrod will do at least a little bit, so I don't have to feed so much, because sugar has gone up so much this year. I mean, it's unbelievable. I had a gentleman send me a message, and like a 4-pound bag was 50 cents, and a 10-pound bag was 51 cents, and a 25-pound was 49 cents, which really surprised me. How much it was, but I think a bag of sugar was like, he was telling me like $10 or something like that. It's pretty expensive for sugar.
So here, I think like at Sam's and Costco, I think it's like around 60 cents a pound here.
Oh, really? Well,
what'd you say?
Was
66 cents a pound.
Yeah, let me look right here real quick. He was, a 4-pound bag was 4.9 cents. 10-pound was 5.1. And a 25-pound was 5.0 cents a pound. So, or an ounce, excuse me. So that's what he said.
Yeah, they opened up a some kind of new chef store down there in Hickory. I was wondering if they had sugar and what their wholesale price would be, because they're selling to like restaurants and chefs as well as anybody who walks in. So you might could get a deal on bulk.
Right. Yeah. Dan's staying up there in New Jersey. It's 25 for 25 pounds, $20. Man.
Yeah, but look at Gunline. They says $1 a pound. Holy canola.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, wow.
Russell Koopman, 89 cents a pound. That's craziness.
I guess I should be happy with what we got then.
I know. I was thinking you got a good price there, Ricky.
Yeah. I mean, wow. You know, yeah, there's Hope saying
80 cents.
80 cents. Yeah. It's really interesting seeing the prices so different. I wonder why the sugar's different in different places like that. Jack and Dayton said 25 pounds for $19.95 in Wyoming. So that's really interesting. Really interesting.
There's a guy here. Well, not here. He's been advertising it on like the bee sites in Missouri, but I guess he's in Kansas somewhere. He's selling like 55-gallon barrels for what? How much, Tom? 44 cents a pound.
Oh wow, that's really good.
But you have to buy it. You have to buy it by. You have to buy it by the 55-gallon barrel, though.
Yeah, that's a lot of sugar right there. I tell you.
Yeah, we were lucky the last couple of years to be able to find people selling like rejected totes of sugar. Those like 2,500 pounds.
Yeah.
And we just haven't been able to find anybody this year that was selling them.
So Tim and Hannah, they're growing their own sugar cane. I wonder if they just feed that direct to the bees. That's interesting.
How much sugar cane do you have to grow though to make it worth it? You know, like how much?
Yeah, it'd be a lot.
It grows pretty good, but I was trying to find some, and it was like $20, $30 just to get some cuttings up from Florida.
Yeah, and Morris said 2 days ago had robin frenzy, looked like a swarm flying in front of the hive. A close up in the entrance. The next day, everything went back to normal. That's really good. I think I actually used your photo for the tab for our live chat tonight. I think that was yours. That's kind of what got me started on. Let's talk about robin today. So, what's going on with you, Melissa? I guess Tom's not here, so you know.
Yes, he's walking around all over the place. He was making some tea and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't been in RVs this week because we did an impromptu drive down to visit Melanie and Dennis Cruz. We left Sunday morning and we literally just got back about a half hour ago. So Tom was actually in Melanie and Dennis's bees this week. And as soon as he sits down, he can tell you how North Florida bees were earlier. So Tom's putting his makeup on his eye. Yeah. That's right, Lee. He wasn't behaving on our little trip. We had to get after him. But before we left, we were in one of our bee yards, and it's out in Union, and it's a friend of Tom's, and they have quite a bit of property out there. Some of it they lease for farming and whatnot. They don't lease; they lease it out for farming. But down in one of the little valleys, we drove over by that, and there was just like a field of wing stem and what else was down there, Tom? Ironweed and just all these pollinating plants and stuff. And bees were all over. We made a little video on our YouTube channel about it. Some asters, ironweed, some other smartweed, I think. But we aren't seeing specifically where we are. Like goldenrod is like just starting, so we're not really seeing goldenrod yet, which is really weird because like in other parts of Missouri, they're like, oh yeah, it's blooming. We've got it. And we're just not seeing it here immediately where we are. So
that's probably pretty cool looking across the state because you guys drove from Florida all the way back up to Missouri, right? So you could kind of see places that had goldenrod, didn't have goldenrod. I know when I go on a trip, it's like, oh, look at those flowers there, and oh, I wonder if they're getting nectar from that, and oh, that's blooming here and it's not blooming there. That's kind of interesting.
Well, you know, one of the things that was really interesting was seeing how dry some states were. Everything was just brown. Where in Missouri, where we are anyway, everything, you know, the grass on the side of the highway and all that is still green. And when we were driving through Kentucky, it was like dry, like everything was dead. It was dry as a bone. In Florida, everything was pretty green.
Yeah.
But here he is. He can tell you
There's
about.
the man. Oh, that makeup looks good on that eye.
Yeah, he got to go out and work with Dennis and his bees a couple different days.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Me and
Before
Dennis
we
had a good
start the robin conversation, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about that experience down there? Because that's got to be really cool. I know Melissa went through a little bit of it, but Tom's going to have a better story, I'm assuming, about what happened.
Florida weather was a little
Your
hot.
assumption is right.
A little hot and humid for me to get out there and work bees. So I stayed inside and did paperwork. Tom went outside and sweated with Dennis and did the bees.
It's better than sitting inside.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So when we were, Melissa was talking about how how things were dry in certain areas. So basically Kentucky, so the western side of Kentucky, anyway, that's where we went through. And the southern part of Illinois looked pretty dry because you seen a lot of the vegetation was starting to brown up, and you also noticed a little bit of stress on the foliage from the trees and such. So that was different. For the most part, Georgia looked pretty decent, but there was probably the southern half of Georgia. I mean, Georgia just gets downright hot. You know, it's pretty crazy down there. At least when you get toward the down in Florida and you get on the coast, it's hot, but you get the coastal breeze. Where I guess technically where Dennis and Melanie are at, there's really not much of a coastal breeze because it's right where the dip of Georgia drops down into Florida, right there, kind of south and slightly, I guess it'd be slightly west of the Okefenokee Swamp area. But so that's pretty stagnant in there. But it was kind of different just driving again from north down south or south up back up north, looking at the differences from where you can tell where there was rain within the last couple of weeks, and you can tell where there wasn't any rain within the last couple of weeks. So St. Louis here still has a little bit of green, even though we haven't had much rain for about the last week and a half. A little bit right before we left over the last weekend, but only a few tenths of an inch, probably just to keep things trickling along a little bit. But I would say robbing season is here for probably most places. Yep. Melissa and I noticed some robbing, or actually I guess technically I did. That was in one of the first horizontal hive that we purchased from you. There was two really, really strong colonies in there. And I think that, we had talked, I don't know if it was last week or the week before here on the chat about treatments and Apigard and temperature thresholds and all that stuff. And I had kind of shared a little bit of my experience where mostly the nukes that I had a few problems, but there was actually one that was in the, I put Apigard on to the hive. So when you had made the first horizontal hive, which was a painted pine, it's sectioned off into 10 frame sections. So 30 frames across there. There's 3 entrances across there. And I had a colony in each end, but I didn't have anything in the middle at this point. But when I had put the treatments on, I left the bottom board because you put screened bottom on there, and you had these little sliding covers. And I didn't realize that I guess technically by the label, I think you're supposed to leave the IPM boards in. But if I'm being honest, most of mine are out. I don't know that I've ever really noticed much of a difference just for an observation, but I believe the label says you're supposed to leave those in. But that one I had technically the IPM board that was in the bottom. And I noticed one day it was robbing when I walked out in the backyard, and I'm looking at, I seen bees, when they start to congregate in an area, they'll start dripping off. And that's a pretty good clear sign that you've got some robbing there. And when I had seen that, I just thought, well, you know what? It is what it is. I didn't know how long they've been robbing. So I just let them do their thing and take it out if that was a weak colony or what have you. But I believe what happened was the treatment I put on, it may have caused them to abscond, because when I got in there and looked at it, I did notice that there was a whole bunch of hive beetle larvae already in there, like a lot, enough that I had to go get my little shop vac and vacuumed it out to save the rest of the frames that were not infected or had the larvae in them. And some of the other ones I just set out up at the shop. And like I said, I vacuumed most of those off so they couldn't pupate down on the ground underneath there. But I did notice robbing on that one particular, and it's pretty clear when it happens. You'll see fighting bees falling out. You'll see dead bees in the ground. And anywhere there's a gap or a seam where the bees that don't belong there, they're smelling that nectar through there, and they're trying to get in any little space they can. That's just clear cut robbing, and that's really the only one that I've seen this year. I'm not saying that I haven't had a little bit of robbing since, but it seemed like that it's been fairly minimal for us, so I haven't seen a whole lot of loss from it.
It seems like we've had like at least a small trickle all summer so far.
For the most part, with the exception of the last probably, I'm going to say week and a half ish. I guess you and I did go look at that one yard that we found different plants that they were still bringing some in, because I seen them fanning at the entrance. And you can always tell when there's nectar coming in if you walk in front of a hive. It's a little bit different than when they're just fanning to bring air in. You can definitely tell if you're walking around and they're actually bringing wet nectar in. When you walk up close to the hives, you'll smell it. You'll smell them fanning that down, and then you walk around the front and take a look, and you'll see them fanning. And if you ever take your hand and put it up there by the entrance of it,
No, they got him. He's telling too many secrets. You gotta go to some master beekeepers for that knowledge.
Oh, there we go.
That was weird.
Hey, Ricky pulled the plug on me. I got too long-winded. You know what? Enough. I get it. I got the point.
You got the memo.
You were talking about the bees fanning is different.
Yeah, so the fanning is a little bit different whenever they're drawing that airflow in, and you can definitely smell it. And we had that in at least one of the yards, but I'm certain that it's real hit and miss where that's happening. You could have it 1 mile here and a mile down the road, not have anything.
And on the observation hive up there, I've actually had to put the fan back down to keep the moisture out from it sweating right now. So I really know that there's nectar flow coming into this colony because of the whole thing will get moisture across it. So there's a little fan in the floor that's blowing up that entrance right there. It's keeping that airflow inside that colony. So that's a good indication for me that also that there's some nectar flow coming into the colonies.
Yeah.
So let me ask the guys in the chat, and we'll let you guys see what you guys think. Do you think there's any good that comes from robbing? So Spanky, what's your opinion on that? Do you think there's any good that comes from robbing?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you wanted rid of some bees.
Well, I'm going to tell you my opinion on I'm going to say one of the good things that I think is that the fact that you might have some colonies that are on the medium size, and they might rob out a small colony that's probably not going to make it anyway, or had some kind of disease or something like that, and they're going to steal all those resources. And that colony that might not have made it, those resources might be what makes them get through winter. So I think that's one of the good things about robbing. And again, it does destroy those weak colonies. It probably wouldn't have made it anyway. So if you lose a colony, then you ain't got to deal with wax mulch. You can go ahead and pull that equipment and get it stored out for winter. So that's another good thing about. There we go. There's some really good comments there. But it definitely will clean your bee yard up till you have more maximum strong colonies. So what do you guys think about that, Tom and Melissa? I think that's kind of what we're getting in the chat here.
I'll be honest. I would say, so when I'm thinking about the good, I guess, Mother Nature is very much survival of the fittest. And for whatever reason, God designed it that way. Agree with me or disagree with me. That's just my opinion. And the only thing I'll say, though, about that is if I have a weak colony, is my colony weak right now because I made a late season split and I didn't get back, knowing that I'm pushing the envelope of Mother Nature and I didn't get back and artificially feed or build them up? That would kind of be my fault at that point. But if it's nothing that you've done late season to make any splits and you're just working from your colonies from the spring and they're weak, that takes them down. But again, if I'm looking at the negative side of it, if that colony was weak because of either virus or a pest issue, when they rob that out, they can bring both of those things back home. So if there's mites in there, they can bring those back home.
Yep.
If there a virus or disease or something going on in there, they can definitely bring that back home. So that's a bad thing. So I don't know. I would kind of go either direction on that, but for me, I would think that the negative would outweigh the positive.
Yeah.
Only because, again, I have made some late season splits, and those are a little bit on the weaker side than what I might have had a really big, robust, doubled up 8 frame. So I don't know. That's
I think the thing is, though, is when you're making late season splits and you know they're going to be weak, you're not going to keep them next to your super strong hives.
Well,
You're
that's
gonna-
a good point.
That's where that equalization really comes into play. Like if you have monster hives next to weak hives, like the weak is going to get robbed out.
Yeah.
You know, so you really want to make sure in early spring and this time of year that you're going through and equalizing everything to kind of help mitigate that robbing. And if you are making late season splits, that maybe you have a special yard for them.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with that.
worry about those larger hives robbing them out.
the only thing I'll point out, if like Melissa's saying equalization, make sure that you're not throwing good bees after bad bees. Though. So if you're equalizing to a weak colony and they're weak for a very good reason, meaning failing queen,
high mite load
viruses, things like that. If you notice issues with the brood particular, don't throw good bees after bad. Take that other colony and I mean, you could either, if you had enough time, maybe try to requeen it. If you had a nuke off to the side, maybe you can try to requeen that colony and get it right. Maybe you add a little feed or some micronutrients or something like that to get it past whatever's going on, or a treatment per se, or cut your loss, shake them out, and let Mother Nature take its course there.
So I'm going to tell a little story about my first experience in robin. And I'm a lot like Morris Homestead there. And when he commented about what happened to him, it was my second year. I got honey. I was excited. I took my wet supers outside. I was probably 20 feet from 2 big colonies. I put those wets out there, and both colonies on either side of those supers that were wet got destroyed. And they were big colonies, very, very big colonies. And that was a very bad learning experience for me. And the supers I put, I mean, I've never seen so many bees in the air. It was worse than a swarm. And next thing you know, both those colonies on either side looked like that. So that was extremely bad on my part. I consider that the bad. When you talk about the ugly, is a big colony that has collapsed, that did really well all season. And like you guys are talking, the mite loads are heavy in it. And that huge colony should not be being robbed out.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be robbed out. And that it's full of mites or something that's wrong with that colony. And every bee in the area is going in there. And I just cringe thinking, oh no, my whole yard's getting all these viruses or mites. And that to me is the ugly part of a robbing going on. If it's a small colony, I don't feel so bad about it. But when it's a monster colony that's getting robbed, I do not like that feeling. It really hurts my feelings, and I just know those germs or viruses is getting spread around. So I feel your pain, Morris, Matthew. I feel your pain there. That was my first bad experience with robbing.
Well, and here's another thing with robbing too. Like you really have to be careful this time of year when you get into your hives, right?
Yep.
Like those bees, you break open some capped honey, and those bees will smell it almost immediately, and you can start a frenzy in no time. So you really have to be careful if you are going through your hives this time of year. And you almost have to be really quick about it too, going through the hives. And if you notice something start, like just stop and come back to that yard either the next day or later on in the afternoon when everything calms down and whatnot, before you really get something going. If you're feeding this time of year, you definitely don't want to be using anything like Honeybee Healthy, because that, no matter how you're feeding, if it's an internal feeder or if it's a bucket feeder, because that honey bee healthy has that lemongrass oil in it, and that is just such a huge. You drip that anywhere, and you're gonna start a robbing frenzy also. So if you are feeding right now, definitely don't be using honeybee healthy, and even if you're not using it, be careful that you're not spilling anything anywhere. And
So-
definitely don't use those Boardman entrance feeders.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't use those front entrance feeders right now. That's not
That's
a
just
very
like a billboard
It
thing.
is. Yeah.
Free
Here
food
it is.
here.
Here it is. Yeah. So if anybody hasn't gotten their entrances reduced right now, I suggest you go ahead and do that. If you've got these
Robber
swarm
screens.
or robin screens, definitely get those on right now. It's the time of year to have them on. Even in big colonies, go ahead and reduce them down. You never know when that colony might get robbed out. So, but I did want to mention the robin screens. So has anybody in the chat gotten a colony that's been robbed and did the tanging or the beating or water hose? Has anybody done that and been successful with that in the chat? Or Tom, Melissa, have you been successful with that? I've tried. I haven't been successful.
I haven't, not with robbing. With the tanging, I've done like that for swarms.
Swarming, yep.
I mean, I've noticed them like land pretty soon afterwards. I don't know if that is actually what caused them to land or not, or if I just looked like a crazy person out in my yard banging pots together. With robbing, I had robbing once on the back patio. We had a bunch of nukes out there, and one of them was getting robbed out. And I think I did turn the hose on, just like spraying it in the air and whatnot. It might have slowed it down a little bit, but it was already a full frenzy by the time I saw it, so it wasn't really effective. The only thing
threw a sheet over mine, a wet sheet on the front entrance, and was wetting it down. They still got underneath that sheet and got in there and was getting that honey. That was crazy.
So what I did when that whole frenzy thing, because there was like 10-ish nukes out on the back patio, is I got wet shop towels and put wet shop towels and just like basically closed off all the entrances with wet shop towels. So nothing could get in, nothing could get out. There was no possible way anybody could go anywhere. And I left it like that for a couple hours.
Hey, I'm going to respond to Brian's comment here. So, Brian, this is what I want you to do. You love making videos. What we need you to do is do just that.
Oh boy!
Get an entrance feeder, drip some lemongrass oil in it, put up a camera that sits there
24 hours.
24 hours a day, and then post that video. I want to see how that plays out.
Do a live stream it.
Yeah. There you go. Send everybody the code. Do a live stream. Send everybody a code. Charge like $1 for that or something. I don't know. Make you a little coin on it or something. There was also a comment that Russell Koopman made here a minute ago, or a question actually, that I think this is really good. Right here, he says Michael Palmer always said Italians love to rob more than any other breed. Is that true, or is it because they're so big late in the fall? That's actually, in my opinion, that's a really good question. Is it just the breed, or is it because they tend to be brood heavy and they're larger? I would be interested to know what everybody else thinks about that, truthfully. And honestly, I actually may research that question right there just to see what I come up with, because you know what? That is a great question right there.
I'm just going to say it's because they're a little bit bigger. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and it could be. Italians are definitely no stranger to bringing back nectar or foraging. So they are a really good foraging bee for sure.
Yeah, and you was talking about those seams with the smell coming through it. And you can see this colony right here that the bees are at each of those joints. Those are the robbers trying to get in each one of those joints.
Every seam has a gob of bees on it for sure.
And that's a huge colony, and that's a colony you don't expect to get robbed out,
Right.
That makes you wonder what the propolis seams look like on that hive.
Yeah, that's true too.
They're going through it, I wonder.
And maybe someone put wets on that colony. I don't know, and that started it. We really don't know by that photo what happened. But that anytime you see bees trying to get in the joints or at the top of the hive, that's a good sign. There's some robbing going on.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Brian's already lost 2 to Robin. We need to get him on this chat. He's got personal experience.
Yeah, there we go. Some personal experience, Brian. Come on in here. Let's
That's
hear
right.
this.
I think the comment that was just up from DC says, I also tape. You know what?
Yeah.
That is somewhat cheap insurance. I mean, you're not going to completely negate, that robbing, but if you can do any precautions in there to help limit that, I think that's a phenomenal idea.
Well, listen to that comment right there, Tom. Look at that.
Wow. That's amazing.
Ain't that something?
That is something. And you know what? This is really, I thank you very much, Russell, for that that question earlier in this comment, because honestly, that has got me intrigued. Speed. Nope, not me, Brian. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but it definitely wasn't me. Okay. But yeah, Russell, thanks so much for that. I'm actually going to start doing a little bit of research because I really want to know the answer to that. Most of my bees are Italian, most of the influences, but this year I started, I got a couple nukes in that had mainly Italian with a slight Carniolan cross, just so they'll brood down a little bit. But I don't want to completely cause them to get too small because I do make a lot of splits in the early spring, so I do need a lot of brood for that. But that's interesting, though. I'm interested to know more about that, honestly. And I'm going to ask a couple commercial guys that I know what their thought is on that too, just to get somebody else's.
Yeah, Jeremy's saying the same thing right there. So that's pretty interesting. And DC right below that saying the same thing. So
yeah, good to know.
Speaking about colony genetics, my little cathedral style, that is feral bee, so it's probably a mixture. And I went through them today. I found the queen. Lee's actually got a picture, so she didn't swarm. That new queen is still in there.
wow.
You can see me pointing at her. But what I've noticed is there's no food in the colony, and there's no brood in the colony, but she's in there. So I'm wondering if that's a response to the lack of food, if she's shut down laying.
Yep.
I wonder if you started feeding them like 3/4 to 1, if she'd start laying again.
I'm going to feed them. I'm going to pull that empty frame out of the front that they've been using to hold up inside the hive instead of outside, and I'm going to put the feeder back in, and I'm going to start feeding them to try to get them through the winter.
Are those carnies, Spanky, or you know?
They feral bees. They could be mutts, or I just found that interesting that she shut down completely. I wasn't seeing any brood in there, only a little tiny bit of cat brood, but she's in there. It's not like she left.
Huh.
Yeah, I would just feed them something light then and see if she starts laying again. Make sure they have some pollen in there too, though.
You can see the picture behind me. She had brood in there, So she was a laying.
So Brian looks like he's going to be at Nature's Image Farm booth.
What's that, Brian?
He's probably talking about Nabi. He said
okay.
On the second, probably the 2nd of January is when I guess.
Okay, I got it now. So
that's the booth to avoid, is what you're warning us.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. No, those Queen Rot dolls, that was a great idea. I mean, simple but a great idea. So.
Yeah. Brian needs to reach out to me about February.
Yeah.
So, but bug in the ear, Brian. Reach out to me sometime. We'll talk.
Yeah, I need to know when they go on sale. That's what I want. When does these Queen Rat dolls go on sale? I'm a cheap
hobby.
Well, it may be. It may be. So, he said the message.
I thought you buy them on his what? Don't they have a website you
Yeah.
can buy them on?
Pretty sure it does.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. Look, Lee's ahead of us already.
I was like, I thought you could buy them.
Yeah. He set all that stuff up. Yeah, I would think. I mean that product works for a lot of different people.
Yes,
You
it
know,
does.
whether you're your hobbyist, sideliner, maybe even commercial guys would use it. I don't know, but definitely I would say for somebody who maybe is not good at note taking, or maybe you're not. This is not a poke at anybody, but if you're not really good at follow through with stuff, and again having a log or taking notes in your phone or whatever it might be, or write it on the top of the lid, whatever you choose to do. I think the Queen Right dial is probably a pretty good solution for somebody there. You know,
And
it'll help.
I've got some Queen Rat draws, and they work great on the horizontal hives. I mean, nuke hives, anything that you put them on, they work really well. So I enjoy the ones I've got. Jeremy, I don't know about that Nature Image Farm booth. I don't know if that's as awesome as you say. They're going to really have to step their game up to make it better than last year. I'll just tell you that. So it was pretty cool last year.
Yeah, I'm sure it takes a pretty large trailer to bring all that gear. You know, just to set up his interview booth that he has there with the boxes and all that set up. There's a lot going on there.
So I did pull this picture right here, and you see the black bees versus the regular bees. So that's another way to know if you've got Italians and they're light tan, and you've got a lot of black bees floating around around that colony. Something's going on, and you'll see the bees are kind of curled up, trying to sting each other, so balling each other up. So that's another good sign that colony is getting robbed out. So I did want to mention that is a good way to know that you're getting robbed. Sometimes some people don't understand when they're not getting robbed.
You know, my mutts are different colors in the hive. You can see there's a light one right there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a dark one over there.
Well,
Spanky, I think that just means you have a diverse genetic, profile within that colony. Like she might have mated with, some darker bees like some carnies, or maybe some lighter ones like some Italians. So.
Yep. And again, this person's put an entrance reducer on this colony, and you can see at the top of the box right there, the bees trying to get in there. So again, that's another sign that your colony's about to get robbed out. So
yeah.
Has anybody tried taking something like closing them up and then taking something like honey bandit and spraying it around the hive that's being robbed out to see if it deters them at all?
That's a good point, Spanky.
I'm just curious if it does anything.
It could, because bees are starting to rob because that's a scent thing, right?
Yep, that's
so
right.
If you can mask and close them up, maybe it helps.
Yep.
They seem pretty determined that they're going to get something.
Yeah. Just don't spray it inside the hive. You don't want to run the home bees out. Then they won't defend it.
And here's another sign that your colony's getting robbed out. You'll start seeing those cappings collecting at the bottom of the colony. And that's well on its way at that point. You're probably done for. So
yeah.
See, that could also be small hive beetle or waxworm, where you see the comb where they're eating through the comb and making it crumble.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Keith Spillman said he tried that. It only works for a little while. That was his experience, Spanky.
What did he try?
He sprayed some like honey bandit, Bigo, something outside the comb.
Probably, I would imagine it probably only lasts until that scent dissipates.
Yeah.
Well, you can spray maybe around the colony or behind the colony. Maybe that would stop some of that robbing. I'd like that'd be a good little project for someone to try out. That's for sure.
Brian Coper.
So whenever I've used that inside of a cutout, which I use that not every time, but fairly frequently I'll use it. Sometimes what I'll do is if I'm cutting out in an area where I don't want the bees to run to, I may cut some combs out, because when you start cutting, you're going to push the bees in one or other direction. So if they can go hide in another space that you can't get to, you definitely want to close it up somehow. So what I've done in the past before, especially if I can't even if I can't reach into an area, but I can see it. I may take and spray some. I don't usually use Bego inside of a house because that stuff is just downright nasty. I do keep some with me, and I have used it before, but very sparingly. But I'll use the Honey Bee Gone generally. They also have Bee Quick. I'll spray it on like a paper towel or something, and I'll stuff it back into an area. And as soon as it gets back in there, you'll watch the bees immediately start flapping their wings and they'll start running away from it. So using that product inside of an area where you are cutting out or you're trying to run bees around, that does work, but it only works for a period of time. I can't say how long it generally lasts, but it probably wouldn't last more than an hour or so before it kind of starts to dissipate a little bit. You might have to reapply it a little bit. So that was been my experience.
Brian, Tom Mack's getting knee replacement. He said he'll be out for like 6 to 8 weeks. That's what that was about.
Well, hopefully that goes really well for you, Tom.
Hopefully you're doing the bee off season.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be coming up here shortly. Sure.
So, Lee, you want to come on and talk about this horizontal that got robbed out on you? Or play the video?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is a colony that I put in the horizontal. It was back in 2022. Now, right after the honey flow, I'd done a small split just to try just like a single frame out. So I put a single frame in there and then a frame of drawn comb. Yeah, I was just going to see how fast it'd build up. So I put a little piece of pollen patty in there and then a jar feeder inside the hive. Because the way you got this horizontal made, I could put the jar feeders inside. So it really don't cause the robbing too bad. Well, with them having the pollen in there and the sugar water, so to me, it kind of made them think, hey, we got a honey flow going on. We got nectar coming in and we got pollen at the same time. So, I mean, when they built a queen in there, she just started laying everything up. And they built up so fast before I realized that they done swarmed. Well, since they swarmed out and that queen left, they didn't have another queen mated in there. So it kind of makes them weak. Well, I guess the other bees detected that. There's no queen in here. Hey, let's go in and see what we can find. And they went in and found everything pretty much. I think we're having a little robbing issue here on one of my horizontal hives. Can y'all hear that? Well, the colonies over here doing pretty fine. That one got a little activity on it, but that one is connected to this one right here. I turned the entrance around. Moving here. Turn the entrance around to the smaller entrance. So I mean, maybe they couldn't get in quite as bad, but I think it's a little late probably. And they tried to even get in the top vents, but these ain't on both sides. On a regular activity over here that we got. Just this one here is pretty normal. This one here, it is just, I believe it's getting robbed. But I can't. Yeah, I went in the next day to check that hive, and they had just a couple bees left, and every piece of comb, and it was just ripped up and laying in the bottom.
Well, that's part of the hard thing too, though, is if you shut it down, like, okay, you shut it down. How many robber bees are in there that you're shutting down with them? You know, it's like, do you shut it down and hope for the best, or you just let it happen? You know, I guess if you catch it early on, you know, if you see it starting, then maybe you shut it down.
Yeah, if I would have got out there in time, I think it would have been a little better. But when I walked out there, I mean, before I even made it all the way in the apiary, I could hear the buzzing. And I mean, I knew it was too late, but I tried to shut it down to the smaller entrance. Hopefully that some was coming out, but maybe not as many could get back in since it was smaller, and it didn't do any good.
That would be kind of interesting to see how fast a colony does get robbed out. You know, like a 10 frame with a super on top. How long does it take that whole colony to get obliterated to there's hardly nothing left inside of it. That'd be interesting to find out, because if I was at work and I came home, you may not even know that colony got robbed out. You know,
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Well,
I see Bruce saying down there he don't interfere with robbing because it could be something wrong with that colony anyway.
right?
And the thing that was wrong with that colony, I don't know if you'd heard me a while ago or was in here, but they had already swarmed out. Now they
Yeah.
did have a queen cell in there, but she had it laid up pretty much with brood, I guess, before she left. So they didn't have a mated queen, so they was missing that pheromone in there. And I guess they detected, hey, this one's queenless. They're going to be weak. Let's get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like Bruce is saying, you know, there's probably something wrong with your colony already to start that up. If you haven't done anything to cause the robbing effect, you know, that colony's dwindling down, or it's just not big enough, like what you're saying, Lee, because you're doing a slow split, definitely can cause robbing.
And they did still have the sugar water feeder inside of
Right.
there. So, I mean, that was a
That's
little
why they was
extra
trying to get
temp.
in that upper vent, right?
That'll add to it. Yeah, they can smell that.
mhm.
You had honeybee going in that.
Use the entrance feeder. Yes.
Yeah.
For honeybee healthy.
Brian's
Oh, yeah.
pushed this thing really hard. How many people in the chat want Brian to make a video of that? Unanimous.
But like, you know, we have 7 different bee yards right now. I mean, there's no way that, you know, it's possible we have robbing going on in some of those yards, and we, you know, we wouldn't know it until we go back out there and go through and do hive checks, right? We'd never be able to prevent, you know, or stop a robbing frenzy going on in one of our yards that isn't our home yard.
Yeah. If you see the cappings in the bottom of that box, you know it's been robbed. It's you know, done for. What did
Yeah,
Brian say?
I don't usually concern myself with it a whole lot either. If I go back and see what's been robbed out, it is what it is, you know. Now, if I had an entire yard that was robbed out, I'd be pretty upset by it. But I've never seen that. So
Lemongrass lip balm. So what's funny about like the lemongrass really does attract them. I can't tell you, not so much this year, but last year we went to do 2 bee inspections for removals and determined there were not bees in these people's houses, but bees were getting in their house because they were burning lemongrass oil or fragrance or something like that. And the bees were smelling it, you know, looking, scouting bees, and they get stuck in their house. So that lemongrass is like, it really attracts them in the spring. So be careful wearing that lip balm in the spring, Brian.
yeah,
You might get a little kiss.
Yeah.
that's right. When Melissa and I had gone to a couple of calls down in the city of St. Louis, and the first time I had come across it, it really stumped me when the guy was telling us, he said, no, they're coming in my bathroom vent. The bathroom vent fan vented to the side of the house. And he said, they're going in there. And I'm like, there's not enough room inside that vent pipe for them to build a nest. I'm like, it would be highly unlikely you have a nest inside that vent pipe. And I asked him, I said, do you use that fan inside the bathroom frequently? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, bees not going to build a nest inside there. I'm like, they're not going to want wind blowing on them. And first of all, most of those pipes are only 4-inch. I'm like, that's not enough space for a honeybee colony to build in. I'm like, he's like, well, they're getting in there somewhere. And I'm like, unless they're getting around the vent, getting in there. And he said they would see a few dead bees in there. And I'm like, okay. So we went in and we searched around, infrared camera, looked around, and I couldn't find any presence anywhere of a honeybee colony whatsoever. And then he took me upstairs near where this one area was at, and the scent hit me, and I'm like, do you happen to burn like incense or like have a diffuser or candles or anything like that? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, I'm just curious. And I wasn't trying to coach him along. I wanted him to tell me. I'm like, just curious. I'm like, what scents do you typically use? And he's like, and he goes, well, we got this one. And he goes, the one we were using recently was lemongrass oil. And I'm like, the light bulb in my head went bing like this. And I'm like, I got it.
I saw the light bulb go off.
She's
It
seen
was like right there.
She's seen the light bulb go off, and she probably tried to smash it so she would, not let my light shine, And immediately I'm like, okay, I've got this thing figured out. And then what was funny, I think there was at least 2 other times that spring
I know there was at least one.
when the swarming season was really hard that we seen that happen. And so then that kind of became a question that we would ask immediately when people were asking about it. Well, they're in this space, and I'm trying to think. I'm like, yeah, bees can't live in that space, or
Do you burn
moving
candles?
forward. So it's a real thing. It happens.
Did you see Jonathan's comment about
That's funny.
in his wheelchair in November?
Deer season.
Yep.
Did you get stung, Jonathan? Were they swarming you? Wanted to make your life a little more interesting, right?
You definitely wouldn't be hearing no deer coming by because the bees would be in your buzz. Man.
Yeah. Jonathan flailing his arms around, yelling, bees. Deer like, yep, not going there.
Oh, man.
But
Looks
for the most part, robbing I think is a bad thing for your colonies. But there is a little good there. A little nugget to look out for. But as most beekeepers, I would definitely, I'd like to be like Russ Copeland and not have any robbing whatsoever.
Yep. And I would imagine if you keep things pretty well equalized, it would probably cut down on that pretty significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Lemongrass oil deodorant.
Yeah, either that or you're just going to get a bunch of bees bearding from your underarm. Just the one.
Only one with lemongrass oil?
Well, that was in November when he was deer hunting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
AJW, did you catch any big fish today?
Hey, so Melissa had told you we were down at Dennis and Melanie's. That was a really good time. We enjoyed visiting with them down there. They haven't commented, so I guess they're not on here this evening, but
it was definitely a last minute trip.
Dennis and I went through some of his colonies. He said, well, he goes, I need to do a couple things. He said, but I don't want to make you work when you come down here. And I'm like, we want to go through colonies? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, let's do it. I'm like, let's do whatever you want. I'm like, I've got a few days. I'm like, whatever you need to do. And he's like, well, I don't want to have you to work while you're down here. And I'm like, well, I need to keep busy. Otherwise, they're probably going to aggravate somebody. So anyway, him and I went through bees 2 different days, and we got through all of his colonies. I think he's got somewhere around 70-ish. He did have a couple colonies that we had to pull back. But all in all, most of his bees look really good. And believe it or not, they were actually pretty mild. We probably could have got by with just wearing a veil, but most of those colonies weren't trying to come off at us. And matter of fact, after we got through going through one of the yards, there was 40 colonies there. We added a little bit of the super DFM to, he got a bag of that. So we were checking them, making sure that they were all clean, right, and looking good, checking the stores in them, and then putting some super DFM on the top. And then we had to move some supers around that he left on some colonies off of some that were not robbed out, but the bees had shrunk down. So we had to shake a few different colonies out. But all in all, they looked really good. They were really mild manner. And like I said, even after we went through one of those yards, Dennis lost his phone. So I took my jacket off, and it was pretty hot that day. Actually, we were sweating pretty good. So I walked back through the yard, and I didn't even put a veil on or anything. And, sometimes after you go through a yard, you can still have some bees that are pretty angry about what you did in there, and they're kind of hanging out and around. So when you get close again, they come after you. I didn't have one bee buzz in my face when I'm walking right in front of every one of the hives along the back of them looking for his phone, and I never had anything like that. So I don't think they had much coming in, but there was a little trickle because we did see some that had a little bit of light nectar in them. But his bees, for the most part, they're pretty mild. So that was joy to work.
Yeah, I think a lot of the bees in the South are a little hot because I was at a certain place in the South, maybe Louisiana, that they were pretty hot. So say there you go. Come look at my bees. Lee's already on it.
It wouldn't have happened to have been a bee yard that starts with Kodiak, would it?
Yeah, it might. I will say I was down at Bruce Jennings' bee yard, and those were quite spicy too. So, and he told me before we got out, he's like, "Be careful. You know, you might want to put your bee suit on before you get out of your vehicle." I'm like, nah, I'm okay. And then they were buzzing me pretty good.
I think almost every video that Bruce makes, I'm like, he's got some spicy bees.
He does.
Or what's the YouTuber?
Lawrence, the guy over in the UK.
Yeah, his bees are mad.
I'm like, between him and Bruce, I'm like, do they kick the hives before they get into them for like entertainment value? You know, to random people just walking in. But I'm like, do they like go kick their hives before you know, just for shock value, you know?
Yep. Well, you know what was amazing was he had gotten some Greg Byrne queens down there off of him, and the temperament of those colonies versus what he had, it was night and day, just totally different colonies. And I'd be like, I told Bruce, man, I'd get all of Greg's queens if I was you. But he said some of those really spicy colonies produced a ton of honey. So I think that's the reason he keeps them around. So
yeah,
I guess like spicy bees for me, it depends on how spicy they are, because like if you can't even smoke them out of your way, or you have to smoke them like every 5 seconds, like they take too much time to manage. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be a you know, the word I want to use is not coming to me. But there has to be a level to where like, okay, this is too much, because it just is taking too much time to go through these bees.
We put Tabasco in our 1-to-1 syrup.
Lee opened beads with Creole seasoning.
It's muy caliente.
well, I'm like you, Melissa. My biggest thing is if I can stand the bees being around my veil. That's not that big a deal. But when I leave the bee yard and they're chasing me back to the vehicle or coming back to the house, that's the kind of bees I don't want to have, because I don't want guests to come over and get stung. Those colonies will do that. So, and Roy says, my spicy colonies, the queens had an accident. The police are still investigating the crime scene.
We've got a lot of noise going on here. Oh yeah. So if we get any bees that are seem to get a little bit hot, we don't keep those in our yard. We keep those at one of our yards that don't have any houses near them. But if they get too bad, they just get requeened, because we don't have time to mess with super hot hives.
Right. So,
yeah, we kind of talked about that this weekend, Melanie, didn't we?
Yep. Hey, Melanie, and then did you guys have some pretty good guests down there, or was they like to cut up on you guys? I mean, they're a little handful, I think, sometimes.
I tell you what, they are the nicest hosts. You know, we go down there, we stay in their farmhouse, and then Melanie always has a really nice dinner made for us. We got down there, Sunday night, and she had some like fall off the bone, melt in your mouth ribs and some sweet corn and baked potatoes ready for us when we got there.
Mm-hmm.
And then one night she made us burgers and homemade fries, and then we went out to eat another night. So they're really good hosts.
She's a really good cook too, by the way.
Yep.
If I lived down there, I'd probably get pretty fat.
So what are you saying, Tom?
I'm saying I'm already a little bit fat. I'm saying, all right.
Are you saying I'm not a good cook?
I didn't say that. Thanks a lot, Ricky. Thanks, buddy.
I'm just helping that dagger get in a little deeper, man.
I know, right?
No, Melanie was a great host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun hanging out with them. We really enjoyed it.
Keith, your bees weren't that bad when we was down there. We did have one kind of chase us around a little bit, but for the most part, your bees they're okay. Nothing like Bruce's, trust me. Nothing. I had colonies harder than yours. So.
I think in all the years that we've been beekeeping, we've really only had one spicy colony that I was like, we got to do something about this one. So yeah, one morning I guess Melanie had to do some work, so I was at the house because they have two different houses. So Tom, when we go down there, we stay in their farmhouse. But so Dennis and Tom went out and worked in the bees, but it was like 98 degrees that day and the Florida humidity. I wasn't going out there.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. It was
Like
so
93 or 94.
It was
wasn't
so
that
hot.
bad.
So I wasn't going out there.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I stayed inside and did some computer work, and Melanie was doing some work at her house. And then the next day, she was in a big, huge disagreement with Kroger all morning. And I just did some more paperwork. So it actually worked out really good. I got a lot of work done that I wouldn't have got done otherwise.
I'm with you, Paul, there on that one.
Yeah, she's killing me. One bite at a time.
I make sure that life insurance is paid. I'll tell you that.
You get some more equipment if you, never mind. We won't go.
Yeah. Hey, I would look down from heaven and be like, ha! She's missing me now as she's lifting those heavy boxes.
Oh.
No, I'll just take that life insurance money and buy like an easy loader.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure you can ask Ian. That doesn't take all the work out of it. It doesn't make the bees take care of themselves.
It's just lifting I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, Tom Mack. Hopefully your mother-in-law is doing better. But yeah, so we had a good week down visiting the cruises.
Mm-hmm. Leave it up to Lee. Dropping in the old shiner. I'm surprised he hasn't made it where there's both of them are black. From that was from my slip and fall.
Yeah.
With a tooth missing or something.
Yeah. Right.
So has anybody else got any spicy bees that are not in the South? Maybe that's what the question we should ask. If Tom's not on the next chat, that's right.
You never know.
Listen, if you guys don't see me for a long time, ask a lot of questions, all right? The more
we'll know automatically what happened. I mean, if it's the next chat and you wasn't on, we would know what happened.
If you see Melissa has a bigger and a fancier house behind her, ask a lot of questions, all right? A lot. Hey, what's up, Carl?
Sarah says she had an unhappy hive.
They can get a little moody this time of year, can't they?
They can. I sometimes feel like they're a lot like the yellow jackets, just waiting to sting somebody sometimes this time of year, especially if the flow hasn't started with the goldenrod yet. They can, like Spanky was saying, then there's not a lot of nectar in that colony. They can really get feisty.
I seen Brian left a comment earlier from Flower Street, said that he ordered his hats.
Oh, yay.
So Brian, keep me in mind when you get those hats and let me know. I'm going to order 3 from you and have you ship them to me here in St. Louis.
Yeah, those were some fancy hats he had too.
Yeah, he has a really good. He came up with a really good design. His logo looks really good. It's real clean, simple looking.
He's doing the patch, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
I
almost
like
like
that.
a patch in the center of it. And he had a few different color schemes for the hats himself. Looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
I like those.
So,
And anytime you're ever designing, you're trying to design everything, anything from a logo to any of your branding and stuff. That's not easy. I'd say in some ways that's much harder to figure out your brand than it is just keeping bees, right? It's like you're always second guessing yourself on what you're doing. Will people like it? If you're gonna try maybe sell merch, is this something people will buy? Always factoring in cost, because the more complicated a logo is or the more colors that are in it, the more difficult it becomes. to match other colors, like on a background for like a shirt or a hat or something like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. I know Melissa and we wouldn't really go back and forth, but her and I would kind of talk a little bit, about when we were trying to have a logo.
We set up a boxing ring in the basement.
Yeah.
And we just,
Yeah, she's smaller than me, so I'd win. So, but yeah, that's always fun. But building a brand and a logo and all that, that's I think that's equally as challenging as, again, keeping bees, because trying to find something that you really like or that really looks good. You don't have something that's like overly complicated. So that's something that we never really talk about, when any of these bee chats is like, if you have a logo or you're building a logo or something of that nature, trying to even put that logo on, a letterhead or any of your swag gear that you have, so that can be pretty challenging in itself.
So Brian said he ordered 100 hats and 5 different color schemes. I'll probably just break even because I'll keep so many and give them away. So we've always ordered hats and shirts and stuff, and we've never sold any as like merch or anything, just as like to wear them or as work shirts. And Tom will do the same with his business with Clean Cut. And what's funny is we see more teenagers wearing our shirts than we wear them. So Andrew and Isaac, I'd swear you'd think that the only clothes they have are Via Honeybees t-shirts and Clean Cut Lawn Care t-shirts. And I go, do your friends at school think you own anything besides these t-shirts? They're like, I don't know. I don't care.
There's kids that come over to my house that I've never seen before, and they walk in, and I'm like, I'm looking at the shirt they have on. I'm like, hey, and they stop and look at me. I'm like, where'd you get that? And they're like, and they kind of like pause and then kind of like deer in the headlights, like, oh, am I in trouble? And, it's like, hey, that's my brand. Where'd you get that from? It's like, you know what? If you're going to wear that shirt, you need to come and put in some hours, Yeah. If it's landscaping or if it's honeybees and whatever, you're going to grab that shirt and wear that shirt. That costs you money. It's like, guess what? You owe me this many hours now, right?
No, we can get them usually to come help do honey extraction. So it's all good. But it's funny just seeing these teenage kids wearing our shirts.
Yeah.
You think they'd have better things to wear?
Maybe I need to do that with the landscaping then. I never see any of those kids come out and help me in landscaping. They're wearing my stuff too.
Well, that goes back to even your honey logo. I mean, when you come up with a logo, think that's maybe the logo you're going to put on your honey, and you want that to look clean, efficient, and a logo or a design can help sell your product really, really quick.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And sometimes, like if you are going to do shirts and hats and stuff, sometimes your logo won't transfer well to different applications.
My orthodontist would be mad. He put in a lot of time and effort on my teeth.
But sometimes, so when you're designing your logo, you got to think about that. How well is this going to shrink down to be, look on a label?
Exactly.
And we have some labels that are only 1.5 inches round, like how well is that going to shrink down on 1.5 inches round label? Or how well is it going to blow up on a shirt or a hat or something like that? So you really got to think about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Jen borrowed his hat.
Oops.
Your question about if anybody up north has spicy bees.
Yeah, that's I asked that question earlier. Yeah.
You remember whenever we went up to the Greg's in-person stream team, he warned us about walking out there because where he's doing his breeding, he's pulled in some spicy bees.
Yep.
Or he somehow had them there for whatever reason. He had spicy bees.
Yep.
And he warned us about walking out there.
Yeah, and you and Terry Chapman were together, and it was like they were attracted to you two. They wanted you two bad.
Yeah, I walked up there and said, "I've been stung yet," and they started coming after me.
Yeah, you know what? I was just thinking about that. I don't think I ever got me a cool horizontal bees hat. I've never gotten one of those.
With all 3 of those.
I know, right?
I
mean, we're basically like best friends, and geez.
Ricky's the best guy you ever known.
No, he's the second best guy. I'm the first best. You know,
So Westcliff brings up a good point here. It's all about the wrapper, quality, label, and packaging translates into more money. That is so true because I can't tell you how many people come up to our table and they just, when there's other honey vendors at the same event, and they're like, "Oh, your guys' stuff looks so nice." You know,
Yep.
the way the table's presented, the way it's organized, this, that. And the
oh,
other.
look at this guy, man. It's like my third best friend there.
Next, he's going to Photoshop a hat on your head in that picture.
Hey, Spanky, I guarantee he'll have that done in like 5 minutes. I mean, he's a whiz when it comes to this stuff. I mean, the guy's got a computer system back there that's like worth more than my house, and it probably takes up a room larger than what my house is.
I'm wondering if he's not like Batman with all the controllers in his little back
Yeah.
cave, you know?
I guarantee he is. Yeah. If Lee wouldn't have been so busy and I would have had more time, I was going to call him and be like, hey, you know, I know he's been working a lot. I was going to be like, hey, I'm going to shoot from Florida over to Louisiana, visit you. Then I'm going to head straight up north from there because he's basically, if I just drop a plumb bob down south, I'll hit his house basically. So he's just straight south of me. Would you like that?
Yeah.
You about spit on yourself.
See what you guys have started. See what you guys have started.
I know. I mean, you should at least
That's
get
right.
you should
Yes.
at least get one with 3 hives.
I know, Paul. I'm thinking the same thing. You know, I mean,
And Paul's had
geez.
6 different little houses in his, so I guess he think, yeah.
This is what I'm going to do, okay? And I haven't told Melissa about it because I just came up with this cool idea.
Oh, great.
I'm going to print off.
Wait, I don't see a light bulb.
Well, that's because you're going to try. If I put a light bulb up there every time you had an idea, you
Is
try.
there a dimmer?
No, you try to break it. So I'm going to print off a bunch of hats and maybe a little bit of Via swag, and I'm going to stuff it in my backpack. So when I go to Nobby, I'm going to give away some of our stuff. I don't know how many hats I'm going to print off though. Probably have to print off a bunch.
You could always do some high
He means
quality.
on printer paper, just so y'all know.
No, I
he's
don't.
it's just gonna be printer paper pictures of hats that
It's-
he's printing off.
That's not what it is. It's not like the bees in the big hive. Not
The
like that.
bees in the big our mega monster hive.
Right. Hey, Spanky, what were you saying before Melissa interrupted
Oh.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying that you could do some high quality stickers.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could pack a bunch of them in your
I like
bag.
stickers. Stickers.
That's
are
a good
my
idea.
thing.
So
Same.
we've never made any stickers whatsoever, Spanky, but that's a good idea. I mean,
I
we,
hear
like,
Sticker Mule does them pretty good, and they've got a lot of variety. So you can do the die cut, transparent, outdoor, indoor.
you know what? The hats seemed like it was going to be expensive enough to print up and donate. Now the t-shirt cannon, that sounds like it's going to cost me a lot, but that would be fun. I mean, you know,
I can see Tom at Navi just
standing in the middle.
over at the Navi.
Yeah. Good job, Brian.
hey, do you think they would shut me down, or you think they'd let me do that? Shoot,
You know they'd shut you down immediately. You pull that thing out.
you think so? Do you think Cayman or one of the staff would come by and be like, no, you can't fire that off.
Yeah.
Like, if I give you a free shirt, will you walk away?
Brian's idea. There's a honey slop. Give you a swag slop.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome. I'm a guy who loves t-shirts and hats too.
Yeah.
I have a whole
Hey,
bunch of
You figure out how many people are going and just take them down there and put them where they're handing them bags out.
yeah. Well, I don't know if I have enough money, Spanky, to print off 3,000 hats. I mean, it
Well, I
probably-
mean stickers, not hats.
Stickers.
oh, the stickers. Yeah.
stickers.
No, that I could do. That I could do. Let's see. what
Yeah,
else?
stickers and keychains. That's
We don't have-
where you get
Well,
a
we're
bunch.
not going to have time to stand there at the entrance and hand that out because as soon as we walk in, we're going to have to beeline for the honey show registration.
Well, you just tell them here, throw these in a bag and throw them out. Make it rain.
Make it rain.
Stickers.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll get there early and just start handing them out in line as everybody's waiting in line to go in.
There you go. Hell Hives has used Sticker Mule.
No, I don't wear baseball hats. I look horrible in hats. The only time I wear a hat is when we're on the boat. And that's just to
Hey,
keep.
Melissa, you need a hat for you and a hat for Tom. Let's see which one sells the quickest.
I don't look good in hats at all.
Ooh. I already know the answer to that.
Another black eye.
Another
Yeah.
black eye. You know what,
Yeah,
Peggy? I'm going to tell you something. I would take a black eye just to win. Okay.
Lee's gonna put a front eye right here and then make it black.
Well, I don't want her to
He
punch
needs
a hole in
a
my
third
head.
eye.
Another black eye.
Yep.
Tom's me sleeping on this beautiful couch tonight, y'all. Good thing it's comfy.
Nah.
I called them lovebirds today, or was it today or yesterday? You guys were coming back. They're lovebirds, and I see I've destroyed this couple tonight, and they're splitting apart.
we're angry birds now.
Angry birds now, yes.
Yeah,
You've
that
ever
was
seen
yesterday. I think.
real lovebirds. They fight all the time.
See?
The real lovebirds.
Thank you,
They
Speaky.
fight all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
So we actually get our honey labels. I get them. Some of them I get from Vistaprint, and some of them I get from Avery online because Avery prints labels. So that's where we get our labels from. I need to look into that sticker mule thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Avery can do stickers as well.
Yeah, that's where we get them from is Avery and Vistaprint because they both offer different sizes for different bottles or whatever. I have to order them from both places.
So I have a question for Paul. You know, you said that you get stickers, magnets, keychains, mailers, all from Sticker Mule, but you said that the labels for the honey bottles are a little expensive. Does that mean that the other stuff is a little bit more competitive when it comes to pricing with other companies out there when you're doing kind of like the swag? Just curious.
Roy, that was a lot of calories. That was like an insane amount of honey and sugar and heavy cream. Oh my gosh. It was so sweet. Like it tasted good, but it was just like so much sugar.
Yeah, after she made it,
They definitely needed to be in smaller
yeah
containers because you would never be able to finish one of them.
No, that was quite a bit. But I'll tell you what, when she first brought them out after she made them that day when I got
They
home,
look really cool.
I told her, I'm like, those actually look really good, you know? And I'm like, you should consider doing that, you know? So she wants to bring a whole bunch of stuff to Navi as far as what we're going to enter in, not just our normal stuff. And I think I took a couple of pictures, and I'm not a photographer at all, but I took a couple of pictures, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to see about printing them off and then bringing those this year too, just to enter into the photograph thing. And like I said, I am not a photographer whatsoever, but
actually that's one of the things that I was doing when Melanie was neglecting me when we were visiting.
she was neglecting.
As I was going through the honey show contest, and I made a list of everything that I want to enter, and then I was making a list of every single jar that I would need because each item you enter needs a certain amount of jars and a specific size and type of jar. So I was going through and making a list of all that and then ordering jars for all that because that way I can have all that ready to go because I'll probably actually start working on making sure my wax is really clean here in the next couple of weeks. And then probably in November, actually start prepping all that stuff for Nabi.
I'm afraid Harlan's probably going to beat you on that wax bliss. I'm sorry.
That Harlan guy, he's a joke. He's an amateur.
He's not even on here to defend himself.
He was earlier.
Oh, he is?
Earlier he was.
Earlier, yeah, he was earlier.
I know he still is. That sweet Harlan, when Jamie, whoever he is, I don't even know.
Jamie, get on here if you're on so you can defend yourself, buddy. I'll back you up, man, 100%.
I mean, I thought about doing it last year, and I'm thinking that his wax was so clean. I'll never get mine back.
It
I don't know
is.
what he did.
Jamie
so
makes some beautiful wax blocks. Like
He
really hits it out of the park.
He deserved that award. Just an
Yeah.
FYI. He worked a lot on it.
He works hard on that wax.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to beat him this year.
I'll tell you what, if anybody ever buys any queens or nukes from Jamie Wynn, or you're around his area and you're looking for nukes, he's over there in Harlan, Kentucky. And if you're ever looking for nukes, I would vouch for him. He is a very, very meticulous guy when it comes to anything. And I guarantee he is going to put everything into whatever it is that he produces. Again, when I seen, he isn't here. He isn't here. He's listening in the background.
Brian, let me go look at my notes. Hold on.
I'm telling you what, he literally went back when we were hanging out one evening He's like, well, I got to get back into the hotel room. I have to buff my wax. And I'm like, you what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, say that again. He's like, no, seriously. And I'm like, holy cow. Because if you'd have seen what Melissa and I had done the first year when we entered into the honey show,
Oh my God. It's embarrassing to talk about.
Oh my gosh. We were like the hillbillies of the honey show, because we literally had put our glass stuff. We filled it like the night before, just, yep, that looks good. Capped it like this, threw the jars in a plastic bag, basically. And when I'm carrying them into the Nabi, like, we get down in that hall. This wasn't Nabi. This was Hive Life. So when we were in the hallway, because that hotel was attached, we were in the hallway waiting to get in. I'm down there with the bag, and I have the honey jars there, and I'm kind of like swinging them around, and I'm sure that's getting all over the inside of this, and it was just it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Well, it was so shiny. It was like a car. You could see your reflection back off the wax. That's
so we're there just like plopping our honey down with our fingerprints all over it. And I'm sitting there looking like, why are all these people wearing gloves and wiping their jars? Like, what's up with
It's like, you guys are ate up.
I was so embarrassed. I didn't even go pick our honey up at the end of the day.
No. That's not what it is. It was not embarrassment.
It was.
All he did was talk the entire time, and we didn't even make it back to pick it up. So it probably got donated somewhere.
I didn't want to pick it up.
And I'm sure if it even got donated to like a homeless family or something, I guarantee when they got it, they're like, oh, this is from the honey show. And they took the lid off. They were probably like, what hillbillies? Look, there's honey all over the lid. No wonder they gave this thing away.
Okay, so Brian asked what kind of jars for the creamed and infused categories. So infused, you need 3 jars, 3 1-pound jars, and they have to be the queen line glass jars. So infused is 3 queen line glass jars. For the creamed honey, it's 3 wide mouth 8-ounce jars. You see all my notes? Hold on. I can't ever do this. There's 1 page of notes, 2 pages of notes.
Oh, you're giving away all your secrets.
That's just
Look, all her secrets are being.
That's just what I'm entering. And all my notes.
Hang on, show them now.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm watching you, Tom.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
That was awesome.
This is the best chat ever.
You
I intend to enter all those, but we'll see if it happens.
Come on, Keith. You can do more than just a black jar. Enter some stuff. Compete against Melissa.
This chat's going off the rails a little bit.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
look there.
Oh yeah.
That is hilarious.
This is not the Halloween
That man
episode.
Robin, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Usually it's Halloween if I want it to be Halloween.
Hey, Spanky, you do you, buddy. You do you, man.
Was that the ghost of Beekeepers Fast?
Darth Lee.
Darth Lee.
James.
I mean, Lee's got all the gadgets back there. I mean, he's got.
I got nothing. I don't even have a wife here with me. I ain't got nothing. Dang, it's rough.
You got your bee jacket right there. You just put that.
Listen, if you're getting lonely, Ricky, go up there and give that bee only a hug. Open up the plexiglass and give him a hug.
Give him a big hug.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It goes to Beekeepers Past.
This is a mess.
This channel has gone off the rails tonight, folks.
Right.
So last weekend, I don't remember if we talked about this. We did a new farmers market last Saturday. And yeah, we didn't because it was just this past Saturday. It went really well. It was busy. We're going to do it again this weekend.
And it was the weather was almost a little bit rainy. There was chances of rain that day, so we're going to do it again here this week, and I think we have it scheduled for the end of the month too. So,
Brian, I'm not sure about that. I would think if you go on the Nabi Facebook page, there's probably a list of all the winners from all the categories from last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that came and did post it, so you'll have to you have to get onto that and then scroll backwards quite a bit, I'm sure.
But the market that we did went really well. I jarred up a bunch of creamed honey into 8-ounce contained glass jars, and it holds 10 ounces by weight of honey. And I only took a dozen because I wasn't sure what kind of market it was going to be, because it was our first time going there. I sold every single one. Every single person that tasted it bought a jar of creamed honey. And if I would have had another case of them, I probably could have sold at least 6 more. And we sold those for $15 a piece. And nobody batted an eye.
Yep.
So
she screwed me on that. Made more money.
He could have packed it up and brought it.
I'm pretty sure I packed it all upstairs.
No.
Are they going to have a hot honey competition, or is that in the infused?
Stop it.
Hey, Russ, the observation hive above my head, it's doing really good. I'm hoping maybe here in a week or so, it'll probably really blow back out again. Or maybe it won't, just because the season's late here, but it's doing pretty good. I believe it does have a queen in it now, so that's for me, that's the best sign, and because I really want to watch it, through winter this year again. So. Wow, that's awesome, Roy. Yeah, there's nothing like getting a family member or a friend that gets in there with you, and you can call them on the phone and talk to them. And my bees are doing this, and especially a family member, that makes it even better.
Yeah, I'd love to get a hold of those infused hot honeys after the judges.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Spanky would win that hot honey thing.
I'd like to try. I'd like to try the competition though and see how they're doing.
Spanky,
I wonder who wants to judge that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could try to judge it.
Spanky, you need to put that apple pie honey in there. That's pretty good.
They want too much of it. I want 3 pounds to judge it.
Can you link the honey show rules into the chat?
Lee can do anything. What are you talking about?
I was just asking you.
He could probably get the president on here if he wanted to. I have confidence in him.
So there is an infused honey non-spicy, an infused honey hot, and then there's a creamed honey regular unflavored and a creamed honey flavored.
I'd like to try those hot honeys. They sound good.
I think this question's for you, Spanky. Apple pie, moonshine.
I've done some stuff with apple pie moonshine. I'm not sure what the content is.
Spanky is exactly what he's talking about.
Made some wonderful apple pie moonshine candies.
Yeah, Brian, we were talking about that. Melissa and I were. She's like, I need this, that, and the other. So I think this fall we're going to turn one area of the basement. I've got a bunch of cabinets and countertop space down there, but I'm going to put in another little alcove that's down there. We're going to remove a air hockey table that we have down there and get rid of it. And I'm going to put in more cabinets, base cabinets and upper cabinets. And one of the things we were going to put in there was basically it's like a wine bottle cooler with just straight shelves that we can use it for cut comb and for setting the creamed honey in. And that'll just stay under there, and you can adjust it, and there's a lot of adjustability to it. So that's what we're going to do here.
Like the size of a dishwasher.
So we were already thinking about that, Brian.
Too hot.
Yeah, she said too hot there, Spanky.
Too hot. They need some new judges then.
Yeah, it says something. If you go down to like the infused honey section.
Hey, Spanky, are you going to be at Nobby?
No, I'll be at home.
No, you can come to Nobby. That's what you can do.
I ain't coming down there. It's a lot of money.
Well, just come on. Hey, tell you what, come on down and we'll poke on Melissa together. How about that?
No, I don't need no black eyes.
Hey, just wear your mask.
I guess they need a new category: infused honey, super hot.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mel-
Mhm. You
Melissa?
do have, yes.
You looking for the hot honey right there?
Yeah.
Yep,
I'm
I got
looking.
a highlight.
Yep. I'm reading number 7.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of categories in there this year. So
But
everybody
won't they
gets.
turn in the numbers that they're thinking they might get this year at the Nobby?
I haven't actually heard. As long as you're going, that'll be one more. Actually, you and your missus, that'll be 2 more.
Well, what about Lee Man? He's not going either.
Yeah, him too. 3 and Spanky 4. There's 4 more right there.
So how many did they have last year, and are we taking a bet on how many's going to be there this year?
There was
I don't know.
3,000 something last
Yeah,
year.
3,000 something. Who else? You know what? I bet you who will actually know. Paul.
I
Hale.
reckon there'll be
bet
more
he is.
people than last year.
I would think so. But here's a question that's something to think about. At what point in time will this peak? Because at some point in time it'll peak and it'll probably start to drop, right? Just like anything. You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna reach its peak and it's gonna start, was it last year? Was it gonna be this year? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still seeing it growing quite a bit. I don't know. It's so. I mean, they could get up to 10,000. Who knows? It's all about where he wants to go with it.
Well, as long as he keeps adding things and keeping it interesting, that will help to keep a draw. But just like anything, and I'm not being a Debbie Downer. I really enjoy going.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I hope this does well for him. I really do. I just see, it's like always something good like that always tends to hit a pinnacle.
Yeah.
Hits a point where and I'm not saying it wouldn't continue to go on, but not sure.
Brian,
Well,
you and Jen can stop in St. Louis on your drive down.
Yeah. Brian, you're going to be coming. No, he might be heading south. You going to come out 70 through St. Louis and then head south, or what?
So I think the homesteaders, their big get together. I think there's almost 50,000 people there for that.
No kidding.
Yeah, because
Holy cow.
well, I was looking. There was several groups of beekeepers that was looking at maybe that would be a good place to go. That they don't really have a bee thing there, and you might be able to open a whole new market because those people love homesteading, right? So that would be. It could be a huge market there for some beekeepers if that's something they decide they want to do.
Sure.
I think most of us didn't decide to do that yet, but.
And when is that? Out of curiosity.
They've already had it. I think that was. I'm not sure. I don't want to say for sure. I can't remember. But it's big. It's huge.
Yep, that's interesting. That 50,000. Wow. I mean, where was that held at?
You talking about the Homesteaders of America?
Yeah, I think it was Virginia. Was it not?
I'm showing Homesteaders of America October the 11th and 12th.
Okay.
That one's going to have the horizontal guy there talking.
Yes, actually, you're right about that, Spanky. There was
You know,
one out there.
It's treatment free, and I don't even know if he uses plastic foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Front Rural, Virginia last year.
There we go.
Usually they have Dr. Leo at those homesteader things because they're all wanting to do the treatment free and that
Yep.
that route.
Natural. Yeah, more natural stuff.
A lot of
They
times
had
Dr. Leo's at those.
it was either last year or year before. There was 5. They had sold a bunch of tickets. They figured, well, not all of them are going to show up. Well, guess it was the year after COVID. All 5,000 showed up. It was like Woodstock trying to get into that place. They were backed up for miles trying to get into that place. They didn't.
We don't know. No.
Did you? So Charlie, did you go to the homesteaders thing?
No, I didn't. I thought about it, but I watched some videos of it. You got the honey said was there. Kayla, she's she was there. I talked to the guy at Monday night, Bill. He tried to put in for that to get there into that because he's right around the corner from it, and they denied his application because well, we'd have everybody. Who's everybody? He looked at the roster. It was Man Lake, and it was the Honeystead. When it comes to knowledgeable beekeeping, is it sold out for this year?
I wonder how many they sold.
Oh no, that was okay.
That's
This year coming up October 11th and
Already
12th.
sold out. But what gets me is I followed or investigated some of those different folks, that are there, and not so much they're beekeeping. There was one guy, they had some guy speaking there about beekeeping, and it was one of them things where you can listen to last year's program for free, and it kind of sucking you in. And this guy's doing the beekeeping, and it's like, you don't feed your bees sugar, and you don't do, it's all this here. I don't know what you call it, but bullshit.
Hearsay.
It's just, I'm like, guys, it don't work that way anymore.
Well, I guess it's all about how somebody wants to manage it, right? And I don't know. It's
when I first started out, you used to hear a lot of folks, I'm going treatment free.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear that now.
People got tired of losing bees.
I think it's pretty common with the homesteader thing, though, to be treatment free and to just
they're so misinformed,
and to just let them swarm and catching swarms and things like that. They're not so much into managing them. I don't think they really manage. Homesteaders really manage their bees. They just
they're misinformed and ill-educated. To be quite honest with you, and then I think a lot of it is when I started out. Varroa mites. You did one treatment a year. If you got 12 varroa mites in a shake, or a powder shake at the time, that's good enough. Well, over the years, that numbers keep decreasing. And of course, the knowledge base has gotten bigger and bigger with Sammy Ramsey and the ones that, I think when I first met him, before he ever got his PhD, he came into our club. I had him come into the club about 3 months before he got his PhD. And it was a total, when I first heard him, it was a total, what'd you say? He finally answered people's questions, or at least mine, what about this? What about that? And at least he had answers. And the first thing in our club, he said, oh yeah, y'all treated in September, right? And by March, they all died, right? And we're like, yeah. He said, well, you all treated too late.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get 2 generations of bees scrubbed clean for that 3rd generation to be really clean of mites to get through the wintertime. And he said, basically, your bees were like cancer patients. They fought till they got up to around March. And they said, we just can't go any longer. And they all died.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his analogy. And he was almost the first guy that he had pictures of what we were up against. And he had videos of him doing his test and things like that. And, the knowledge is out there for us out there now. There's lots of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, I watched this one guy and he's talking about don't feed sugar water and, don't, do all these different things. And I'm like, really? I says, it's, where did you come from? What are you, 2 years in beekeeping or something? I don't know. It's just, and then you hear a lot of them. Yeah, they all got bees and they all died. Or there's this one guy, he's up in Vermont. He came from Washington, D.C. as a suit worker type guy, and he got this farm up there. And his wife, I think, is a nurse practitioner or something. And anyway, he had a beehive, and what did he do? He was number one, you could tell he was scared of the bees. And number two, the last time I seen him, he had put a medium super on, no frames, and he had, I forget what it was then. I don't know whether he was feeding or whatever it was. But anyway, here we had 6 inches of wonky comb filled, just completely filled with that thing. And I had text or, wrote in his comments. I said, go find yourself a local bee club and, basically educate yourself. But I don't think he ever did. And you don't see him about the bees anymore because the bees went out the door, And then he's also the guy, he gets those, the cattle, they're from some cold country and they're real shaggy looking thing with these great big horns and all that, and they got about 6 or 8 head. And hey, I'm going to put them inside this barn area right here. And I'm thinking, I said, aren't you going to build some fence? Well, I'm just going to do Joel Stallison style, put myself a little teeny electric fence and some wire, and they're going to stay right there. And they're about as crazy as all get out type of cat animals. And it's just like, guys, get with the program here. You don't even know how to farm. You need some, if you're going to have cattle like that, you better have some serious fencing and all to contain them and all that. So that's
we've had a few people come on early around the St. Louis area, keeping bees, wanted to be treatment free. And my suggestion was, I'm not trying to talk somebody out of it. The only thing I had said to him was, well, you should make considerations for the treatments that are out there and look at them. And I said, if you get to a point where maybe, first of all, you're isolated, that could work for you. Maybe you are going with a stock that maybe is hygienic, or maybe you're not going to use treatments, but there's other things that people can do though. They can use a mechanical method. They can put in drone comb frames and pull them, or put in a medium frame in a deep slot, let them build it out. And then once they cap it, cut it off, move it out, or pull the queen. Or some people, if they're in an area, maybe they can let their bees swarm. That's another brood break. Those are all good mechanical methods for people who, again, this is not something that I chose to do myself personally. I have too much investment and I don't want to see it gone. But if somebody wanted to actually work that way, then, that is an option for somebody to do that.
There was a beekeeper here in the Pennsylvania club that I belong to, and he did the drone frame removal where he had the green frames, and every so many weeks he pulled that frame out when it was capped, froze it, and put a new frame in when they did all that stuff. And it worked, and his mic levels were very low.
Yeah.
My question to that person who wants to be treatment free, has he got enough education, understanding what he's up against as far as the Varroa?
I agree with that. That statement I 100% agree with. Make sure that you understand it. I've even told people before, I said, okay, make a consideration for right now. You can use a treatment that's not a synthetic treatment. You can use one that's more of an organic that won't persist in the comb at all, or for a very minimal time, like Apiguard. Maybe you start with that. And then when you get to a point, maybe you start to kind of wean off of that too, It just seems like for me, anytime I see people give up, it seems like it's about 3-year mark. Maybe sometimes you can get somebody that's a little bit persistent. They might hang on to the 4th or 5th year of losing bees. But, if they're keeping 1 or 2 colonies and they're like, I've lost my bees 3 years in a row. Most of the time, it seems like that's when they're just like, yeah, I'm going to bow out, and they haven't. And it seems like not all, but the ones that I have spoken with have not checked for mites and or treated for them in some form or fashion. That doesn't mean or I shouldn't say just treated, but used some form of method for controlling Varroa. And that could be mechanical too, maybe not just a treatment. But it seems like people hang on there for a few years, and after a few years of losing bees, they kind of tend to bow out because this is getting too expensive. I'm not getting anywhere. 2-3 years of disappointment is enough for me. And they kind of move on. There was one lady that had bought a colony for me. I don't know who she started with before. She bought one from me 2 years ago and lost it. And I kept telling her, I'm like, just come to the meetings. I'm like, I know it's a little bit further for you. Come to the meetings or listen to them on the YouTube channel. I think they're usually about a week later. And she messaged me questions, and she was having really good luck now from the couple nukes that she had bought from us. And I said, look, if you are not going to make some effort to keep these bees in the box and keep them healthy, there is a good chance that you could potentially lose them, So I've been kind of pushing her a little bit. She's been doing much better next. She this year she got a pretty good honey crop off of her bees too. So hopefully she's in a good place where she'll still want to stick with it, because I hate to see people bow out of it, because it really is a pretty rewarding hobby for most folks, But again, nobody wants to keep this from year to year.
The main thing that I see with the newer beekeeper is the successful beekeeper is the one that puts forth the effort, like you said, in education end of it. If they don't get out there and come to the club meetings, or I get so aggravated on certain ones, they'll ask me, like, I said, well, if you would have come to the meetings and where we actually just talked about whatever the subject would be, you might have a better understanding, but they don't want to put the effort into it as far as education side of it.
Well, even
really
if you're wanting to be treatment free, there's still education that goes along into that, right? Education about doing brood breaks, education about making splits, which, kind of doing brood breaks, education about a Varroa VHS bees, so there's practices that you can be treatment free and be successful at it, but it's going to be a lot of work. I think it's going to be a lot of work to be treatment free, and you're probably going to get a lot more losses. I think also, if you want to be treatment free, if you're just ordering nukes from somebody, even Man Lake or wherever you're getting them from, those bees, I'm sure they treat them with away before they send them out, or clean them up or somehow maybe. I don't know. We've never bought VCR bees, Lee. Anyway, so I lost my train. Anyway, so you're getting these bees from wherever you're getting them from. They probably have some mites in them already. So if you're wanting to go treatment free, I think you still probably are that first year for being a new beekeeper, you're going to want to at least treat with OA or something to keep that mite count low, because a new beekeeper isn't necessarily going to know how to do brood breaks or, things like that until you can get or start buying queens from Corey and get those VCR queens so that they are resistant. And really that's the only way that you're going to, I think, be treatment free. The other thing is Dr. Leo, he lives, according to him, in the middle of some forest in the Ozarks, so there's no other bees around for miles and miles and miles. So his bees are pretty much secluded, to only his stock. And that's why he doesn't necessarily have to deal with mites and doesn't have to treat, because there's no other bees infesting his colonies to get them sick, So I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, what do you have you asked Doug and Stacy what happened to their bees?
What?
I say, have you stopped over to Doug and Stacy's house and see whether they're not still keeping bees?
Whenever I haven't watched anything from Doug and Stacy in probably a few years.
Yeah, I know.
Their bees just kept dying, and they'd catch swarms, but they're in the middle of a town too, so their bees are not the only bees in the area, and Dr. Leo's with them and helping them and this and that and the other. I'm embarrassed.
I like it.
Well, I think you're right on point, Melissa. And I think that if, let's see, Dr. Underwood, Robin Underwood, she has a presentation about conventional bee, treatments. Let's see, the ones with chemical and then the other one was treatment free. And I think like you say, you have to start out, I'll say, with treatment and then work yourself away from that as you gain knowledge on how to do all that. You just can't, put the bees in a box and walk away. It ain't going to happen.
Well, I mean, a lot of people do that. It doesn't mean that the bees live, but I mean, you can do that if you want to. The bee police aren't going to come and get you.
Yeah.
No, it's not about, but you're just going to be either catching swarms all the time to replace those bees or buying new bees,
Treatment free is an interesting and complex topic because there's treatment free, there's naturalist beekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, any attempt to prevent or disrupt the varroa mite cycle is a treatment.
Mhm.
So a brood break that you purposely have done is a treatment to them. If you purposely force a brood break, if you purposefully do a split, you are treating the colony. And so, but then other people don't see that. They only look at the chemical treatments.
Mhm.
And so a naturalist beekeeper may not even use Langstroth equipment. They may go so far as to have the as close as they can get to a cavity that the bees go into. And
Yeah.
so they may not care if the bees die. They may hope that they get in more bees. And I think there's an interesting argument that if you're pulling in a bunch of bees from cuttings or swarm catches, and you're constantly getting in new genetics from places, that there is an interesting argument of why go through treating if you're constantly bringing in new bees that you don't know where they're from, because then you're constantly having to get more and more treatment, or you lose a bunch of bees, but then you're going and getting more bees the next year to replace that stock that you lost from the mites instead of paying for treatments. So it's an interesting question of whether you want to spend that money and have more colonies possibly, or if you're willing to possibly have a big collapse, but you've already got a system or systems in place to replenish that stock the next year, be it doing cutouts, doing loads of swarm catches on the list. So if anybody sees a swarm of bees, they call you in your area. It's an interesting question of, is it worth spending the extra money, or is it worth doing all that extra time stuff to pull in bees instead of buying the bees?
Yeah.
Or doing the splits and all that. I mean, when you do all that, are you going to make any honey? Or if you're just wanting bees, I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking too that a lot of homesteaders aren't necessarily having bees to harvest honey to sell. They might be doing it to harvest honey for personal use. Yep.
Or it might be just for pollination too.
Right.
And a lot of times those guys their management's so low, they're swarming out of the colonies, and that's a brood break, right? They're catching that, they're throwing it in a box. If the old colony dies, no big deal, right? They've got this new, and we all know swarms do really good, right? They blow up, they do great. So that's kind of their natural way of doing it.
Where's all the feral bees at? They're all dead. I mean, if you go and watch and talk and listen to the guy up in Cornell University, I can't think of his name, as Dr. whatever. Anyway, I forget how many thousand bees we've lost in this country due to when the varroa mite came here. Ones that were natural bees here. It was thousands. It was almost completely ruined us, the whole world or this country.
You know what's interesting about that? So the Asian honeybee, I believe it's in Europe, and it's invasive. You know how many colonies that the line come from, and that invasive spread that they currently have, Charlie?
Talking about that big Asian hornet or whatever?
No, I'm talking about honeybees, but the Asian, not the European.
Okay.
One colony is where the invasion come from, which is very interesting. That one colony had enough genetic diversity to create what they consider an invasion, this is now an invasive species. That's a very interesting thing, that one colony could have enough genetic diversity.
Now you're talking about not Apis mellifera. You're talking about Apis cerana, correct?
I'm talking about the Asian. Yeah, I read an article about it that it had established in a non-native range, I believe somewhere in Europe, and they traced it back doing the genetic testing to one single genetic parent.
That's
All of
interesting.
the colonies that they had been finding. So in theory, there could be more, but they haven't found those genetic differences in the testing.
Yeah, that's interesting though that you say that. I've never really researched or don't know much about the Asian honeybee, which again I think that what you're referring to is the Apis cerana, not Apis mellifera that we have here. But that's pretty interesting though, because if I'm not mistaken, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here. Again, I haven't done much research. The Apis cerana is actually, I'm going to use the word very cautiously, but somewhat resistant.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, to mites. They've learned to deal with them.
Yeah,
Again,
they grew together. Okay, you know, they've been around with each other.
Yeah.
So
So
somebody in there, correct me if I'm wrong, or if they know something about that, please jump in on it, because I'm talking a little bit ignorant here, but very, very limited knowledge on that.
I believe I found the article. It's from Popular Science, and it's titled "How a Single Honeybee Colony Led to a Species Invasion," and it was in Australia. These Asian honeybees beat an evolutionary paradox in Australia, and I'll throw that in the chat if anybody wants to read it. I
Yeah.
found it very interesting.
Now, I jumped on the other question about Nobby and the size of the show and all that kind of stuff. Do you think it will get too big, if he lets it get too big, or is he going to keep it at a certain level?
I think he'll keep it at a certain level because I think he sees that. I think, I think he sees that if it gets too big, it's not going to have the appeal that it once did.
I don't know. That'd be a good question. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like he was talking about vendors, and last year this year he had 140 of them. And asked him on that last chat he said he was going to have more vendors. And it's like, one thing that I kind of noticed was that when the first year down in Tennessee with Hive Life, there was 35 vendors, and there wasn't a great amount of diversity in products and stuff, but I found a lot of things that I really wanted.
Say, Charlie, when you said the first one, do you mean the actual first one or the first one you went to?
Well, the Hive Life number 2, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I think that's where most of us started, but there was 200 on the first one, I think.
230 or 250 people.
You were there, Ricky?
Ricky was there. He was one of 3 vendors.
Yeah. So like Sawmill Charlie and our first was technically the second one that was held. So
yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to
clarify. What I'm getting at is I don't know. I guess maybe I bought fume boards and different things at that show. And it was where you could hit every vendor and you really looked at everything over closely at what they had to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got 140 vendors, and you're kind of like, well, here's a commercial size, some kind of a creaming machine there. It was there this year. And I was like, okay, I don't even know what it is. And I'm walking on by to the next thing. And I mean, there was something,
Let me kind of go with what you're saying there, Charlie, about vendors and stuff. And so I'm going to speak outside the box here just a little bit. And hopefully I don't step on nobody's toes. But when you get so many vendors in the same location, it drives the price down.
Yep.
So it gets to be to the point where does the price get so low as a vendor that you can't compete with the other vendors that are there? And that's kind of happened this time. I'm just going to say it.
Well, you're saying the price of the product in the show, you mean?
Well, let's just say.
Are you talking about the ticket price for people to get?
No, I'm saying let's just say frames. Let's just use frames for example, right? you've got, let's say 8 or 9 vendors bringing frames, right? Now, depending on the people and how well you're known and all that stuff, who comes to you to get those frames? You see what I'm saying? Who has the best price, right? So you don't make a lot off the frames, right? There's certain things that you make a lot off of it. For me, as a horizontal guy, last year, technically I was the only horizontal guy there. The year before that, they were 3 or 4 horizontal guys there that had some horizontal equipment there. And now my attitude is I beat them out, right? The next year. And most of those guys did not show up last year. Okay. So I beat them out. But there's certain equipment that is universal. And will you continue to get vendors to come and be able to give a very good price or compete? So you're going to start losing vendors. You might get some more special vendors, right? Certain nicks, yeah. And those like me, right? I'm in the little nuke or notch, right? But the regular like Man Lake and all those guys that are selling the same equipment, at a point that breaks and it can't keep going, and they can't keep giving these huge discounts, right?
Yeah.
If you can't, if the vendors don't give the huge discounts, you don't get the people to come, and we need as many people to come to sell as much product as we have. So with what you're saying, yeah, there is a point that I think it breaks. It won't continue to work.
Yeah.
So Caitlin's he's got to figure out how to make all this work and fit together that it works out good. It may not at some point in time.
Yeah, there was somebody here in the mill where I don't know. He seemed to be around vending areas and stuff like that. And I said something about they had 140. He said, well, that's exactly about where you want to be. He said, from that point on, I think it's what he was maybe trying to get at, what you were saying, Ricky. But what I kind of felt like is that like the first one that, at Tennessee in Knox or at Hive Life, Hive Life, I don't know what was Hive Life actually called that over there when came in the first one.
The second year was,
Second year was considered High Life. He came and just had a conference. That's all it was. The first year ever, and that was COVID. That was just COVID. And then they call it. And then it's Hive Life, and I don't know. It just seemed like the vendor level on the first Hive Life in Tennessee at the conference center, that they were midstream size, semi-family level businesses.
Yep.
And you could tell by, there was like Miller Bee Supply, which is sort of a company that does boxes and woodenware and everything. And then there was the husband and wife team there that they had their little business. And there was, like you say, it was always at that kind of a level of businesses. And now it seems like, I still say there's some of that at Nobby, but it's kind of been over morphed or whatever down with corporate bee suppliers and stuff like that.
Rick, that's pretty funny that you brought that up, because that's the exact same thing that was on my mind. And I thought about this last year when it went to 3,000 or 3,200, I think Paul said. I thought about it, and me and somebody else had the same conversation last year when we started talking about the number of people there and the number of vendors. And the one thing that got brought up was discounts. And I got to thinking about it, and I don't remember now who I was even saying that to, but we had a specific conversation about that and said, at some point what's going to happen is the deep cut discounts are going to start to level off, because like you just said there, and maybe this is a conversation that actually you and I had too, because I seem to remember you saying something about it. There's going to be a point in which everybody's throwing these hard, deep discounts in something just to get it there. And some of these guys that aren't buying this huge bulk buys, they're going to start to get where, well, even though they had a great product, they don't get the same, what's the word I'm looking, marketing, or the amount of saturation in that market, people's eyes on that. as what somebody else who bought more product, and everyone's like, oh, hey, who's got the cheapest price on frames, right? Then everybody's going to jump in and say, well, this guy's got this, and somebody else might throw something else in there, but it's going to narrow it down to a few different ones, because that's what it boils down to. And I think in some way, that's kind of how we've gotten to the point, like in America, where we all of a sudden started buying everything from other countries, like Chinese made stuff, because regardless that we know that most of the stuff that comes out of, and China is easy to pick on, right? Most of the stuff that comes out of China just doesn't last. I mean, probably the longest thing that lasted that comes out of China was COVID, right? But the stuff comes out of China just doesn't last. The quality is not there. I mean, just as a blanket statement anyway, I'll say that. So I personally am going to go out on a limb, and I think some of those deep cut discounts have probably already peaked. And I think that you might start to see it come back down to where you may not see as deep a discounts coming into this next year, because some of those guys in certain markets have now already been eliminated out of there. You know what I mean? Another thing too, I've noticed here lately, people are really starting to cut back on their spending here this later part of the year. And I don't know if it's maybe just because of gearing up for school and things like that. It'll come back.
No,
But
it's
election year. Maybe it's election year, but people have already started to kind of dial back a little bit in their spending. So, you know, the fact that this is good, the Nabi is going to happen right at New Year's is going to eliminate some people out of that already, you know, because they're not going to want to, you know, get in on it. But, you know, it would be really curious to see the discounts that are actually playing in this year. But I would venture to say they probably won't be as deep cut as what they have been in the past.
Well, you know, when Cayman first started out, and he stated this, he wanted each vendor to have one drawing card. And he said, not 10%. He said, I want a 20 or 30% cut on one product, more or less what do they call that? A loss leader or something like that, you know? And it's like grocery store. The grocery will have the cheapest milk around to get you in the store, so you'll buy something else.
That's right.
And Cayman said, like Man Lake, they had a 20 or 40 pound of pollen patties, and that was, I think, their cut rate deal for the rest. And then everything else was at normal prices per se.
Yeah. So what you're saying is
about the small companies. That's gonna. Those people may not be able to compete, right? And you're right, and you want those small companies because you get that. That's kind of the feeling of togetherness that we get at Nabi, right? That we're all coming together. We're we're helping the little guy out, and
And I kind of, you know, like I bought some spray for fume boards and whatever.
Yeah.
It was a husband and wife thing there, you know. I won't say they had the best price, but it was a decent price.
Right.
By the time I got the
Hey, Brian,
tube tops.
Never mind. You answered my question. My question after the comment was, how many did you buy? I still got two.
But I will say, with us, me and Ruth talked about this year. With us not going to the Navi, are we going to hurt ourselves as a company because someone else is going to fill that void, right? And we're not going to be there, and then we're going to have to fight that whole battle over again.
Yeah, but I mean, you have a niche market. You have a.
I'm going to say yes, just to guilt you into going.
Well, I'm gonna say yes, not to guilt you into going, but I would believe that a true friend would tell you the truth and not just tell you what you want to hear. But in my honest and humble opinion, I do think that the answer to that is yes. I think that you will hurt what it is that you're doing.
Yep.
But I will say, going to the flip side of that, I also equally say you are in a bit of a niche market and you do have a brand that people recognize. So it may not hurt you as bad as somebody else doing the same thing. But yes, I think the answer to your question, I think, is yes. I think it will hurt. I think you'll feel it a little bit.
Well, for you would have to look at it too, is like, how many orders do you get from Nabi that get you through the year?
Yeah. And then those orders are not, we don't make the money that we make off our website. It's almost double on our website, right? So there's a lot of money made on the website. So it's for us, it's almost better to not go to Navi, but you know,
Yeah.
we get our name out there, and that's the key with that show is where we get exposure being there. So they left us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, now they were talking about 3,000 people. I think it was like 2,800 people, wasn't it? Actually, far as tickets sold.
I'm not sure.
I think, and then it might have been 3,000 with vendors and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I could see the Nobby getting to 10 if that's where he wants to go with maybe 5, 10 somewhere in there. It's going to be in that frame, and I think for him is venue. Can it hold that many people? And you know, can he keep people coming back every year? Right. So those are the two things he's got to look at.
Yeah. It's, the venue definitely can hold it. I mean, it can expand. It's why it is what it is. I mean, there's multiple rooms to that place and everything. You know, I mean, there's big agriculture shows there and everything else. But I don't know. It's I like going there myself to visit with everybody here.
Yeah,
you know, we
absolutely.
actually, you know, I love where we all went out to dinner and stuff like that. And
Hey Charlie, maybe you can guilt Ricky into coming because now where are we going to go to dinner the night before?
yeah, let's
You
do
know?
it. Yeah.
See,
just
what I'm
gotta-
afraid is,
We got to get a better networking system on how we can network with each other and
Yeah.
and all
Well, I
that
think-
kind of stuff.
So I think
Tom, I
Brian's
got to worry about Charlie and him's got a bunch of top bar hives there at his place, so he's just gonna slide right in on me. I think so.
if only he had a sawmill to build it.
Yeah, see, yeah. His brother built some beautiful top bars, by the way, and he does have quite a few of them there. Yeah. So, guys, I'm gonna call it there for the night. I appreciate everybody stayed on this late with us. Appreciate that, and you know, it was really cool having Batman and Robin on here tonight, which was crazy, right? Tom got an extra black eye, so this was a definitely rolling.
Yeah, and I lost it.
A lot went on tonight, so I appreciate everybody that did stay with us this long, and we'll catch you guys next Thursday.
All right.
Brian, I'll look into that.